Thank you for tuning in to WDRB Media, the voice of the community. The only station giving you double the information and inspiration. Welcome back. You're listening to Perky Collar Radio, and I'm your host, David M. Frankel. Our next guest today is going to be Dave Des Rochers, the owner of a company called Path2HappiSuccess. Welcome, Dave. How are you today?
I'm doing well. Thank you very much, and thanks for having me on.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for being here. So tell me a little bit more about Path2HappiSuccess. How does it work, and why did you get started with it?
Well, actually, Path2HappiSuccess was derived and actually started from based on a book that was written by a PhD doctor, Dr. Richard Ellison, who owned multiple companies. And the name of the book is Career, Happiness, and Success. And as he was writing it, one thing he kind of came to terms with in the 10th chapter was that students were actually having a difficult time finding their career path. And he and his partner had conversations of what was it that made them successful and also happy with what they were doing. And in that process, he started doing some research, and then the statistics and they're alarming. The issue with the fact that 75% of students change their major at least once. Wow. And then it goes on that 33% of them change it 2 or 3 times, which adds 2 to 3 years of additional college. And when people talk about college, everyone now almost automatically assumes that it's going to take 5 to 6 years for their child to get through college, when the old standard, of course, used to be 4 years.
Sure.
And it's because they don't have this clear path. And we can go into more detail as to what the actual program is, but that was the basis of it, is we're trying to reduce those statistics, because so the 5 to 6 years is one thing, but there's also all kinds of emotional issues, not just financial or economic issues, but emotional issues, like a student facing, or having to make these decisions without any type of information. And so then they're going into college with stress and angst, or the old liberal arts, take a bunch of classes and do your best. Well, not only does that get discouraging, or for instance, when I was in school, I didn't know what I wanted to take, and I liked whales. So I took an oceanography class. Come to find out, I had no aptitude nor interest in biology or sciences, and I did actually very poorly in that class, which dropped my GPA. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to give them this clear path through our program, and it's much different than what else is out there. And we can go into more detail on that.
Sure. No, that sounds great. So what motivated you to start the program to begin with? Do you have a child that just finished going to school, or about to go to school, or just friends of yours that were struggling with the concept, or was this strictly based on the numbers?
It was strictly based on the numbers. And once again, the issue that he found is he's trying to give advice to people as to how to set themselves up to have a successful career and be happy in life. Because success is not always monetary. It's also just being happy and looking forward to going to work each day. Sure. And unfortunately, 70% of Americans are not happy in what they do. And the AARP ads illustrate that, and the numbers are out there. So it wasn't based on any one situation. It was just based on I guess, his insight. So the program is completely different than anything else out there. We all know that there are personality tests. The schools give them a personality test, and it derives a report of 40 to 50 vocations, and the school says, okay, there you go, good luck. Well, they're no more better off than when they started the process. So there's aptitude tests and there's personality tests, and they generate the same type of reports. What we've done is we've incorporated not just personality and aptitude, but both of them, and then taken a step further, and we utilize their interests, their personal preferences, and finally their traits. So what we've done is we've incorporated every aspect that's available to a person when they're making a decision to find out and fine-tune exactly what they're going to be best at. And so our approach is that in order for them to determine their best major, we need to figure out what career they're going to be good at, what career they're going to enjoy, look forward to doing, and therefore having the most chance of being successful at. And the process does that. There's no other process out there that kind of, that takes all these steps. We have 4 different educational, instructional videos as part of the process that works them through it. They also do some research and educating themselves on the U.S. Department of Labor's ONET. And so that way they're going in, they're making educated decisions now on what they're going to want to do in life. So when they're choosing their major, they're doing it, like I said, very informed and something that they can look forward to doing rather than being apprehensive and just taking a, throw a dart at it approach.
Exactly. And I think most high school parents think the guidance counselor's job is to figure out what their child's good at and guide them on what type of schools they should apply for based on the type of programs they have that are related to what the child enjoys or based on their grades, or I guess they think there's some kind of survey or some type of testing that goes on at the school to help the guidance counselors assess the students. But it sounds like the guidance counselors have so many students that a lot of times they fall short on doing a very thorough evaluation. Has that been your findings as well?
You've hit on 2 points that are at issue. One is which, of course, they have a multiple, they have a myriad of students that they're trying to assist. But secondly is that the programs that they do have available to them through the schools fall way short of giving any assistance. For instance, we had one student who took a test, and it gave him a list of, it came out to be about 56 vocations that he would be good at, ranging from, a funeral attendant to a cake maker to, no kidding, a buttermilk or a butter maker. And then the personalities that were highlighted for him stated that he would not enjoy being a nurse, a teacher, or any kind of aide. And 2 paragraphs down it said, you will excel at being a nurse, a teacher, or some kind of aide.
Wow. Those
are the programs that are being given the students at both the high school and junior college levels. And I have, other examples of that. So, how much assistance is that? And for him, he was more frustrated after taking that than before taking it.
Right.
So when we get done, we don't narrow it down to 50. We start at 50 based on their personalities, based on their aptitudes and the tests that we have incorporated into our program. And then we extrapolate the things that are most interest to them. And then they do the research on ONET, which narrows it down. Then they, once again, fit in their preferences, interests, and we narrow it down to traits. And we narrow it down to 2 specific careers, vocations that they are best suited for. Now, they, once again, just define the very clear path. Once again, hence the name Path2. And the Path2, determining your best career, or top career and best major, is our first program. We have 2 that are getting ready to launch. One is for students that are already in college, for instance, that have been there a year or 2 doing their undergraduate work and still have yet to determine a major. And then the third program is for folks that are sitting there in their jobs and can't stand it but don't know what to do.
I see.
And career transition is a huge thing.
Sure.
As a matter of fact, I'm an ex-NFL football player and know a lot of guys that knew they wanted to play the sport but never really gave any thought to post-sport.
Right.
And so there's a huge market for us to be able to assist people in determining, okay, I'm not happy, but I don't know what to do. So they take this course, and then they now, once again, they have a clear path.
Sure. Well, I think there's a lot of athletes that once their careers are over, they get depressed because they consider themselves an athlete for life, and they retire and travel the world and be wealthy and not have to ever work again a day in their life. And reality is most athletes don't last more than a couple of years in the NFL or NBA or Major League Baseball, and they do have to have a career after their sport. And to get them out of that depression and give them a thought or a path, I think is very important.
That's correct.
Other criteria I would say is important is the people that are in their freshman, sophomore years in high school. If they could do this assessment a little earlier, it could also help them determine what classes they want to take their junior and senior year that are more geared to what they enjoy, to really fine-tune and narrow down exactly what they want to study once they get to college. But that's not done until they're ready for college, unfortunately.
That's correct. And we're kind of in our research in our test groups and beta groups, we're finding that sophomore year is typically the best or the earliest at which somebody could take this because they're starting to have those thoughts and ideals especially for those that are self-motivated. It is very essential to be self-motivated.
Sure.
In dealing with anything, and especially in something like this, because, at 15, 16, what are most of your friends doing? They're playing video games, they're playing sports, and things that are fun, and that's fine in moderation. What a lot of them aren't doing is thinking about their careers, right? And so you have to have some self-motivation to do this. And so the earlier ages, it's more geared towards the parents taking some initiative in sorting out something like this, because everyone's aware of, once again, of all the different things available to a student, and that is, Princeton Review and getting, good SAT scores. Well, a good SAT score is fine. It helps you get into a school, but that's it. There are plenty of advisors that are helping people find scholarship money or do essays to apply for universities, which is great, but it doesn't help you define what it is you're going to do once you get there.
Exactly.
And that's a niche that we are filling. That, to our knowledge, in our 2 years of research, there isn't anything else out there that does that. And aside from defining those things, I get back to the emotional aspect of a young person now looking forward, because they know what they're going to take. They're not wasting money on classes they don't need. They're not wasting additional years trying to figure out what their major is going to be. We also talk about the importance of internships, and we help guide students in that respect. That's what separates you from others once you've graduated. And then the other thing that a lot of people don't take into consideration is that those additional years of school cost money.
Of course.
So, those that graduate in 4 years already have a student loan debt or other debts, or parents that have paid for schooling. But 1 to 2 more years is, anywhere from $30,000 to $60,000 additional dollars.
Sure.
And lost revenue.
Right.
And lost revenue because you're not working, right? So if you are able to get a solid education and a degree, and instead of getting out and starting to work for $40,000, $60,000 a year, there are people that are still in school trying to figure things out. Well, there's lost revenue, which also sets you behind year over year because you haven't been in the work in the work environment.
Right.
So there's so many aspects that behoove somebody to take something like this. And for less than or about the average cost of one course in college, they could take this class and eliminate all this guesswork, all this angst, and have a much better chance of, we certainly can't guarantee they can graduate in 4 years, but we're going to give them the best chance possible.
Right. Well, I think you help them, put them on the path to where they really like. And I think because those who aren't asking the right questions, the students don't know. They're still kids. I think we expect a lot from these kids to know what they want to be when they grow up. And
right.
That's a challenge. And the next subject I want to talk about is student athletes, because I know several student athletes that are asked to commit to a college their sophomore year. So now you have these kids that are super young, 16 years old, 15 years old, that are now supposed to know what they want to be when they grow up. But because they're great athletes, there's these major universities coming after them, and who knows, they even have the program that they want. But because they're being recruited, they're forced to make a decision that much quicker, and therefore the whole process of figuring out what they want to be when they grow up kind of takes a shortcut. And those are the players I'm sure end up taking longer to get out of school because they got there with one major, realized it wasn't for them, didn't have time to job shadow because they spent so much time with their sport, with training and traveling and so on and so forth. They're the ones that get a couple years into college and say, what am I doing? This is not the type of career I want to have. Let's change gears. And they're an extra semester, an extra year or two as a result. Do you find that student athletes have the highest rate of changing majors, or is there any stats about student athletes?
It's interesting you bring that up because I went to San Diego State University as a scholar athlete, offered a scholarship, and when I went in, I hadn't thought about a major. I liked art, and so when I sat down with the counselor, their question is just as most students receive is, poised, what do you want to do? And I said, well, I like art, so I went into graphic design. Unfortunately, it was a limited curriculum, and that it interfered in practice, and so I didn't choose by choice. Change by choice. I was told to change my major, so I wasn't late to practice. And unfortunately, that did set me back. And so when you're talking about the student athlete, San Diego State is interested in, and I see this position very well for student athletes, especially for a coach that can help the graduation rate of his student athletes, because they are now focused on the fact that, hey, of the 40 of us in the senior class, 2 may get a shot at the NFL,
right,
or post collegiate sports, but the rest of us are going to have to find a job and hopefully graduate. And so if a college coach can bolster his graduation rate, also importantly is the eligibility rate.
mm-hmm.
Because a lot of these kids have, like you mentioned, come out of school not giving much thought to education. Now it's not just keeping the GPA. You have to be finishing classes in an upper division and moving forward in a curriculum. And so it helps this student coming from someplace that hasn't given any thought, giving them now, once again, that path, that roadmap to helping them get through school and staying eligible, being able to take advantage of all the benefits of the scholarship.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. So how do people find your program or learn more about your program? Is there a website they can go to?
We certainly do have a website. It's www, and then it's Path, the number 2, Happy, HAPPI, Success. So Path2HappiSuccess, all one word, .com. And on that, it'll give more statistics about the basis of the program, the problems that are being faced, the solutions that we provide. Also on there, I guess we can mention now that we'd like to give all your listeners a $100 discount off of the retail pricing. And all they need to do is punch in the discount code of PC Radio, so Perky Collar Radio, PC Radio, and they'll receive that $100 discount.
Well, that's outstanding. Thank you so much for the listeners. And listeners, take advantage of that discount and save yourself extra college money that's not necessary. So again, that coupon code is PC, as in Perky Collar Radio. And the website is Path2, the number 2, Happy, HAPPI, success.com. Is that correct, Dave?
That's correct.
Excellent. So what inspired you to get into this? So we talked about the business. We understand what it does. We understand how it works. So why is Dave a part of this? Why did he create this program?
Well,
what did you do before?
A little bit of background is that, I aside from, I participate, and you touched on this earlier as well, I was one of the guys that did the professional sports for a couple of years, so I didn't make a ton of money. But I was able to leverage that, and for 20 years I did investment and financial planning, investment management, financial planning, and a few years ago I sold my firm off, and it was just in a conversation with Dr. Ellison when he was telling me about his book, when he was telling me about his program, that I just went right back to when I was in school, and I thought, gosh, I was paid to be there,
mm-hmm.
and I didn't get much help. And this was in the 80s. I don't know that things have changed a whole lot. But if I'm not getting help, as far as determining my major, trying to figure out what I want to do with my life outside of sports, I can imagine what the everyday student, is struggling with. It just clicked naturally for what he was doing and what he was trying to put together. I wanted to be involved with it.
That's excellent.
And that happened about a year ago, and we've been full go ever since. And it's been very exciting. It's great to be a part of something that helps everybody. Every year, there's 3.5 million students that go out and graduate high school, and 2.3 million of them venture off into college. So if we look at the statistics, at 2.3 million, that's $500 billion that's being spent in colleges, and half of that money is wasted because 50% of people that graduate from college graduate with a degree they do not use. So that means $250 billion is wasted every single year at universities and colleges.
Wow.
We're trying to make a dent in that. Yeah. So
I'm sure colleges aren't worried about you your
well,
success, because they enjoy the money and they, rather keep the students as long as possible. But it's nice that you're out looking for the students and the parents that are splitting the bill, and the staff are loans, and the loans the kids are taking out. If all that could be more efficiently done, that's a win-win all around.
You bet.
And the colleges probably ultimately, professors especially, would rather have students that want to be there. They'd probably rather have students that are motivated by their subject and not just taking it because they have to take an elective or taking it because that's what they thought they wanted to be, and then all of a sudden they fail miserably because it's just not their interest, and they go to study, and it's not interesting enough to keep them awake. They fall asleep, reading their textbooks. So I would think the professors would actually gain from having a more engaged, more excited, more passionate student body as well in their classes.
And you've made another valid point, and that is in the conversations I've had with some universities and educators, is that there is a movement. There's a movement. Everyone has acknowledged already that the system is quasi-broken, but because there isn't anything there, the students shouldn't take 5, 6 plus years to graduate from college. But there just hasn't been anything in place to bridge that issue. The fact acknowledging it's not working, but how do we help them? Well, okay, so in the past they've been giving them this, as we mentioned before, a personality test or a singular test and trying to help them that way. But it has yet to define a much more clearer path. And that's why we were able to, over the last couple of years, define this more of utilizing every aspect available to them and then giving them a more defined and informed decision. And I'm finding that some of these universities, in their acknowledgement, are trying to figure out ways to get back to getting their students, and almost like a mission statement that we are going to do whatever we can to help your student graduate in 4 years.
Wow, that'd be great.
Yeah, that would be.
So
it'd be great to be a part of it.
Keep their debt down and keep them graduating in 4 years. That'd be one heck of a movement for sure.
Yeah.
So Dave, I don't know if you can share one of these stories, but can you share a story of a great success, someone that has taken your program, got into college, got the degree, was so glad they had a very clear path on what it takes to get that degree and get into that career? Obviously, don't use names because we don't want to infringe on anyone's rights and having permission to share their story. But is there a generic example you can give us of someone that didn't really have a path and then after taking your program had a very clear path?
Well, I do, and it's a young man who was at a deemed party college in Northern California. We'll leave it at that.
That's surprising. But go ahead.
Well, I was at one in Southern California, but anyways,
okay.
I digress. He was at a school without much focus. He was just there because he was going to college, as most students, based on, hey, this is what I'm going to do, but was struggling in school and was out partying and taking part of what other kids do that don't have any focus, and that is going out and enjoying the party life. And it was really kind of cool because he took the program and it came up with the result of a fairly obscure kind of a career that he would be best suited for and that he was interested in, and that was geological science or environmental sciences and geological things.
Okay.
And so they did have a curriculum at that school. He got into it. He went on and started taking a full curriculum in that. And he got back to us and said he has now he's due to graduate. He's involved in internship. He's involved in 2 different societies because what he did was he took heed to our advice, and that was get involved into groups or programs are within your future career, and start to learn the vernacular and get make associations and ties and network. He's done those things. The other thing he said is that I don't have time to go out and party, and because he's got a full set of classes that are very important to him. He knows what he needs to do, and I went back once again to then when I was at school. And I'm thinking, well, if my next day I have coaching football and whatever class I had that just made no sense, well, there's no impetus or no reason not to go out and have a good time.
Right, exactly.
But if the next morning you have a course that's going to tie to your major, that's going to tie to your GPA, that's going to tie to your success, well, then you're going to opt out of that. And that's what he found. And it was really, once again, it's the exact story you're asking for and that we've seen. So we've seen it work. And once again, he's due to graduate, and he's already, got his foot into the doorway post-graduation because of those internships and other steps that he's taken to have success post-graduate.
That's excellent. That's a great story. Now, do you recommend job shadowing? And if you do, at what point do you recommend that, just to reinforce that they're on the right career path? Or maybe you narrow it down to 1 or 2, and the shadowing is what becomes the ultimate decision maker. At what point do you recommend job shadowing in that decision process?
Well, I don't see that there's any point in which not to start, because for one thing, okay, so this is a program. You are a little bit younger. We've defined this career, this your major. I think the sooner you get into it, it's either going to affirm your decision, or how many people graduate with a degree? They go out and get the job in the field in which they've graduated and say, "I hate this."
Right.
Right. So I think the sooner you do that, the sooner it either once again affirms your decision and just makes you even more committed to it, or it opens your eyes, going, "Oh, I might have been a little bit off," and let me redefine it.
Right.
So I don't. Of course, if you're 18 and just getting into school, it may be a little bit more difficult for you to find those. But one thing I have found also is that there are more and more corporations offering internships, and there are websites out there. I don't have one off the top of my head, but they are out there giving students lists of corporations that are offering internships, and it's becoming a more and more hot topic. And I think young people in school, anybody that's listening, should take advantage of that.
Makes sense. Now, obviously, we focus primarily on the high school, college student trying to figure out what they want to major in and graduate with the type of degree that's going to be in line with what their passions are, their interests are. What about for listeners that are in a job now and they're not happy? Is the program different for them? Is it the same program? Explain a little bit more detail on how it works. If I'm in a banking job right now here in Charlotte, North Carolina, I thought banking was my thing. My parents were bankers. And suddenly, after 5 years, I'm like, you know what? Banking isn't my thing. But now what do? I'm 5 years in. My degree is in finance, but I really want to get into something else. How is the program different for them?
It's funny you mentioned banking. I became a vice president of a bank and decided I wasn't cut out for banking. But
it's like, what do you mean you're quitting? Like, I don't like it anymore. I'm out of here. Like, what? You make good money. You have good hours. You have a nice corner office. Like, I don't care. I'm not happy dealing with you guys every single day. I'm out of here.
Yeah, I just didn't care for it. But it isn't different in the fact that it is the same basis, utilizing all those same aspects that we have available. And that is, once again, I think most people didn't do any kind of research leaving college or when picking their job, other than, hey, it sounds good, it pays okay, it's close to home, I have time for the kids, that kind of thing. It'll cover basic expenses. So what we're doing with people that are disgruntled, and once again, going back to those numbers of 70%. So if 70% of the workforce, which is, I believe it's 1.4 billion people that are in the workforce, quite a few of them are disgruntled, 700 million, whatever the number is, are not happy in their careers. That the only difference is the way that we emanate the information, because for the younger people, our instructional videos have animation and are talking to them at that level, the things that they're concerned with and dealing with, within the high school parameters, and what they're going to be facing as far as college. Well, that all, of course, is eliminated for those folks that are already in a career.
Correct.
Now, all we're trying to do is just get down to the brass nuts, and that is to determine exactly, okay, this is what's going to make me happy in life. This job is something I'm going to look forward to doing, every single day. And we still utilize for them the ONET, the Department of Labor's ONET, because it's important to know that, okay, if I'm going to make a transition, I need to know what the median income is going to be, what the potential high income is going to be. Is it a growth field? Are there any jobs available?
Exactly.
I might want to make
a
jobs.
Is there jobs in my area, not just jobs in general?
That's right. And ONET does do that. You can base it in California. You can base it in the state that you're in, North Carolina. So you could go there, and now you're making informed decisions. You haven't made this leap, and then you get if you have to go back to school, or you have to go to a trade institution, or even just going out and applying, and you make this leap, and you're going, holy smoke, I'm going to make less than what I make now. Right. That may not necessarily translate into someone being happier. And so back to making informed decisions. This is going to give you exactly what you're best suited for, what your best aptitude personalities are suited for, and now you can kind of go into that a little bit more informed.
Excellent. So help me understand the time frame. So let's say I'm a listener right now. I've been at the same job for 5-10 years. I'm not 100% happy, but at the same time, I'm complacent. I have enough income to survive. I have a nice car. Life is okay. I'm afraid to shake it up. That's where I think most people fall into.
Exactly.
Especially those that want to be entrepreneurs. They love the show Shark Tank, but yet they don't have, the timing is not right. It's just not now. I love to do it, but it's not the right time.
Yeah.
What do? They go on the website. How much time is taken in taking assessments or the course? Kind of walk me through that time frame of you pay, it's a 3-month, 6-month, ongoing.
Oh, gosh.
Help me understand how that course works exactly.
Well, the initial tests that are taken take less than an hour to complete. The results then are 2 different reports, one of which is about 170 pages, the other one's about 50 pages. But from those reports, as far as being informative to the kind of person that you are, they're very insightful. I mean, they're for me, I really enjoyed reading it. But what we need to do for the program, though, is just extrapolate the pertinent things, and that is your best suited vocations. You take the vocations, and then what we've developed are some matrices that then take these vocations and then help them whittle it down to the 2. Okay. And then that's what our process does is it takes them step by step how to do that. Okay. Certain things are going to score high, but then at some point, then you have to score them yourself, your personal interests and your personal preferences. Do you want to work indoors, or do you prefer to work outdoors? Do you prefer to work 40 hours, or do you prefer working whatever it takes, like you and I,
exactly.
Entrepreneurs, whatever it takes. So you got your preferences in there, and then the final thing is your traits that are going to. I kind of keep repeating myself a little bit because it is a little bit redundant, but that we've done everything that. There's nothing else out there available to you that's going to help you make a decision.
Right. But it gives you a good
now
summary
for younger people,
of where your true interests lie and what kind of career you should be pursuing in order to truly be happy.
That's correct.
Okay. So I guess once you have that summary,
in the book,
what do you recommend as the next step? Do you recommend applying for jobs in that field? Do you recommend, I guess it depends on what the field is. If it requires a bachelor's degree or a master's degree, I guess would determine exactly your next steps. If it doesn't require additional education, what do you recommend? Do you recommend drawing up a resume that's more targeted towards the job you want to have? Do you start going on LinkedIn, looking for people that have jobs that are more like what you want to have and start talking to them? What do you recommend as a next step? Is that even part of the program, I guess?
It is. And here's what we advise both students and those that are looking to make a transition. If you're in your 50s or 60s, you may have some more insight to what other vocations or jobs and what's entailed with them. But if you do not, is that we advise, especially like the student, is that that's when they sit down with their parents and ask parents, family, and or parents' friends that may be in that field to get more information, to get more insight.
Okay.
It would be the same thing for a job transition. Because if you have no idea at all as what it would take to be a programmer, but you thought, well, gee, I know all these people that are in programming and I love computers and I want to do that. You need to talk to people that are in that field. Right. Because what they don't realize is a lot of programmers sit in this huge office in a bunch of cubicles and they're given a work and it's not near as glamorous as it may seem.
Correct.
Yeah, and so once again, we want people to be.
I know that world very, very clearly. In a cubicle, have at it.
We want people to move and be happy.
Right, yeah. You're surrounded by 3 walls and, just get it done, crazy deadlines, projects due.
And not a dig on anybody as a programmer.
No, of course not. But you have to be willing to live that lifestyle. And my father was very introverted.
That's correct.
And it was a great fit for him, and he loved computer programming. But you also have to stay on top of things because, as new technology comes out, you constantly have to continue to learn. Otherwise, you're a dinosaur, and only for him it was mainframe. That was his baby. And once mainframes kind of went away, he really struggled to find things in his later years. There were things he could do, and he tried learning the new technology. It was just hard for him. So it's interesting.
David, you brought up another valid point. You're a great interviewer. You keep bringing up valid points that remind me of things that are pertinent, and that is in the ONET. One other thing that it designates is that in order to be competitive, what levels of education are required.
Right.
So if a student, say, is looking at, well, gee, I like puppies, I want to be a veterinarian. Well, what a lot of young people don't realize is that to be a veterinarian, the joke is that veterinarians are for people that dropped out of med school.
Right.
I'm sorry. The opposite is no, I think I'm pulling a just a space out here. I'm sorry.
Okay.
But anyways, there's a lot more involved with
Those
becoming a
dentists. That's the ones that
veterinarian.
dropped out of med school, I thought, right?
Yes. All right. And
From The Hangover, I think that was like, you're not a doctor, you're a dentist. He's like, well, I'm really a doctor.
so, but what it does is it tells them in order to be competitive, you need to have a PhD, you need to have a master's or a doctorate. And so for those students that aren't really apt for school or would rather not spend time in school, then they are able to make that educated decision. Boy, okay, I'm going to shy away from that career because that's not suited for me.
It's ongoing education.
Yeah.
Yeah, some people just want to have their 4 years and be done. Other people realize that their field they're in requires ongoing education until they're no longer working. And for some, that's great.
And
some people, they, like you said, that's not an attraction to them.
Yeah, and I will have to say this as well, that we had one student take it, and there was just nothing that would have behooved him by going to college, because everything that he wanted to do was with his hands, outdoors, not in an office, and it boiled down to he wanted to be a mechanic. Well, then go to trade school.
Right.
And we don't want to discourage not going to college. That's not the impetus or the purpose of the course, but it does work out that way sometimes.
Sure.
Is that this person is best suited to I want to be I want to get into landscaping or whatever the case may be, construction. Well, then go learn a trade.
Right.
And get to working, because then you're going to own a business in the length of time it would be for you to get through college, and you're not even going to utilize the degree.
Yeah, what about the people that take the course, say, in high school, and they're on a path? Is there a period of time you recommend them taking it a second time or a third time as they finish college, as they get into their career, 5 years after they get in their career? Is there a certain schedule that you recommend? Because obviously our likes and dislikes can change. I know every relationship changes over time. What you're looking for in your 20s for a mate is different than what you're looking for in your 30s and 40s. I would think people change, too, over time. So do you recommend a follow-up interview just to kind of address those changes as life changes for you a little bit?
I would agree with that, and the fact that has come up. We don't have anything like that currently set.
Okay.
That is something that is on the table.
Okay.
Because I agree 100% with you, and that is as we grow and have experiences, and do things just like that's like the school of thought for taking liberal arts. Just take a bunch of classes and see what you like, see what what cultivates, and what you like to do. Well, the same thing in life is that you go out and you start doing things, and something you may not even have considered at 17. When you're 24, you're like, wow, I kind of like that.
Right.
And so one thing that is on the table, and that would be a secondary or a backup test, that if you're a full paid client, that you would have that available to you at some juncture, and it may very well be at graduation, just confirming what you've been doing for 4 years. But it could very well be, like you said, 10 years later.
Right.
But that's not something that we have etched in stone, but it is something that's on the table.
No, it makes sense, because again, we change and different life situations change, and I would think at graduation of high school, graduation of college, and 5 years after your career would be three big milestones that are worth reevaluating just to see if you're on the right career path. And obviously at the same time, if you get into certain industries like finance, you may have to start out in an area of finance that you're not exactly crazy about, because you want to work towards the investment side, which they don't tend to put recent college graduates into the investment side. But just to make sure your path is still towards investment, so that way you can continue to work towards that. Or maybe once you get into the banking world, you realize that you thought investment where you wanted to go, but truly you love what you're doing, right out of college, and you want to delay that investment pursuit as well. So I just find it interesting, because we change as people, and I think the majority of people in their jobs are not happy. And it's great to know that you've created a tool to help people, help increase job satisfaction, which I think also creates happier people. It also creates longer lasting people. You have people maybe less suicide. You have less depression. You have less people on medication. I mean, who knows the trickle-down effect from people finding the right career paths down the road. The trickle-down effect could be enormous. better relationships, because obviously if you're in a terrible job, it's kind of hard to come home and be happy-go-lucky with your spouse or your family. So I think there's a lot of, maybe there's less domestic violence, less drinking, and less drugs. I mean, who knows where it could trickle down to when people truly enjoy what they do for a career. So I'm so excited that I had you on the show and you were able to create a product that can help so many people.
Well, and thank you very much for giving me the time to explain what we're doing. We are excited about it. It's great to be a part of on the front of something that is helping people fix something that everyone knows is broken and help give a solution. And like I said, hopefully your listeners will take advantage of the opportunity we give them by having us on the show.
Sure.
And we do have like I said the whole frequently asked questions on our website for folks to inquire. And thank you very much.
Excellent. And again, we'll repeat the website, which is Path2HappiSuccess, spelled with an I instead of a Y, success. And my guest today, again, is Dave Des Rochers. And again, thank you so much for being on the show today. You're listening to Perky Collar Radio. I'm your host, David M. Frankel. You tune in to WDRB Media, the voice of the community, the only station giving you double the information and inspiration. We'll be right back after the break.